this tent. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. Thank you for joining us, whether you're doing it via video or via audio. I'm Kev, I'm your host as always, and once again I've got the full gang with me. I've got the Trust Chairman Tony Murray.
Hello.
I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe.
Hello.
And I've got Town fan Dan Barrett Davis.
Hello.
Okay, you are here for the West Ham preview podcast, Friday night once again, 8 p.m, this time at Kenilworth Road, the first Premier League game at Kenilworth Road, which is fitting really because this is the first podcast that's gone from League 2 all the way to the Premier League, and we are the longest running Luton Town podcast. Okay, let's have a look and talk about the game a little bit. Before we get stuck into the sort of meats and potatoes of it, let's go through a couple of stats. The two sides have met 90 times in the past, 9-0 that is, in history. Luton have won 32 of them. West Ham have won 33 and there have been 25 draws. Tony, this is a fixture that's kind of, well, it's not happened for 29 years, but I think we all remember the last time it did happen because what a night that was.
Yeah, very much so. Scott Oak's hat-trick and Dan Potts' dad making that fatal mistake to let Scott in for his third goal. Cracking night, absolutely brilliant night. But God, yeah, when you look back at it and you think it was that long ago, good God, bloody hell! Now, I've seen a few Luton West Ham games going back further than that. You know, we've had some great games with them. The League Cup semi-final when we beat them over two legs, 5-1. We did a
5-0.
5-0. Yeah, you're right. Actually, blimey.
Don't give them a goal that they didn't deserve.
I think the game at their place, we just demolished them. I remember Mick scoring and Roy Wegley scoring. Wegley took them apart, and then got them back to Kenilworth Road and beat them 2-0. But one of my favourite seasons when we played West Ham was going back even further. We walked what is now the Championship in 81-82, but West Ham won that league the season before, and I remember going to Upton Park for the first game of the season, and we beat them 2-1, and it was a funny game because I remember Ray Stewart playing for them, and he had a hell of a shot on him. And he hit this volley, and I remember Basher heading it out, and I'm thinking, my God, Basher's head must be made of concrete, you know. They scored. Memory might not be too good here, but I think they scored with 10 minutes to go with a penalty, and then we got two penalties ourselves in the last 3 minutes, and David Moss put both of them away to give us a 2-1 win, and that was the only home league match West Ham lost all season. And then the return match at Kenilworth Road, that was a cracking game as well. We beat them 3-2, so we were the only team to do the double over them that season. And that's when they had people like Trevor Brooking and Alan Devonshire playing for them in midfield. David Cross up front for them was another one, and if I remember right, I think Billy Bonds was playing at the back for them as well. And that was great. It was, we put them in their place.
You mean to say that football existed before 1992?
Oh, yeah. Back when football was good.
There's a host of 12-year-olds watching
And you
this game.
didn't have
Who the hell are you talking about?
You didn't have tourists at the game, and there was no such thing as half and half scarves.
To be fair, they think that when Tony speaks anyway, not necessarily about football pre-1992. We're actually unbeaten in the last 4 against West Ham because that quarter final that Tony spoke about, the Scott Oak's hat trick, that was of course a replay after a 0-0 draw at Upton Park. Obviously, West Ham have moved to the London Stadium since we last since we last played them. It's
I remember playing them before that game, actually, in an FA Cup game at Upton Park. And they were in the second division. We were still the first division side, and they beat us 5-0. And it was absolutely chucking it down with rain. And in fact, the highlight of the evening was doing a conga on the terraces.
That was the season before we got relegated out of the top flight, wasn't it? So, that's how long ago we're going back since we played West Ham, folks. But Dan, there's a lot of sort of connections between West Ham and Luton in this current squad, and there could have been even more had a few others not left. Obviously, Tony mentioned Dan Potts and his father, Peli Radakampanzu, came through the West Ham system, and sort of more recently who've left us, Elliot Lee, George Monker, Rhys Burke, of course, who's still in the squad. Yeah, absolutely right. It's familiar between the two sides, really.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of connections. I think a lot of that was to do with John Still. I think he was a West Ham fan, wasn't he, John? And
I think he still is, mate, to be fair.
Well, yeah, all right. He's still a West Ham fan. So I think I think as a manager, you sort of look to clubs that you're sort of familiar with in a lot of ways, and that's where it's come from, and it served as well. I mean, we had both of the Lee brothers come through as well, who got us through League Two, and obviously Peli, the big story. But loyalties aside, they play for Luton, don't they? So they'll be.
Yeah, they do play for Luton, but you never know. They might kind of have a bit of a point to prove.
Well, you'd like to think
You'd think so, yeah.
That'd be the main thing that you can draw on with those players, and whoever gets to play. Obviously, I think probably won't be many of them this time around.
I think Peli probably will play some part.
Yeah, we know Potts won't. Unfortunately, he's out until
for a while.
I heard he's out until the new year, although they're just claiming that it's months at the minute.
Well, that is months, but it's it's a lot of months.
It's a few, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They're not wrong, are they? But,
no.
And who knows how much he was going to play anyway, but I've said that for how many seasons now we've been doing this. So I need to stop. Sorry, Dan, I need to stop writing it off. But you'd expect maybe Peli to have a game, and if Rhys Burke, I don't know.
If he's fit,
if he's falling apart in the intervening minutes, intervening days. Depends how much time they give him at Gillingham, doesn't it, really? But he's not really had much of a pre-season, so you'd think he could go for a while. But who knows? There's a hell of a lot of players that have come from them or have the affiliation. It's not quite Barnsley levels, is it? But it's
not quite.
I mean, it used to be, didn't it? That was the go-to transfer at West Ham to Luton, and now obviously, like you say, it's Barnsley.
Going the other way, Tim Breaker and Ian Dowie.
There's an awful lot that, I mean, if you go right the way back, there is a lot of connections between the two
John
clubs.
Hartson's another one as well.
Yeah. Matthew Upson.
Yeah, it's incredible. I guess locality is one of the reasons for it. Okay, let's move on to the game itself. James, it's the first time, well, we're hoping it's the first time that you're going to see Luton in the Premier League in person. You looking forward to it?
Oh, immensely. Yeah, who wouldn't be? This is it. This is where the season starts, isn't it? I said before the season starts, and we were doing the preview podcast, that I wouldn't like to call it a free hit, but you don't expect to get anything off the likes of Brighton and Chelsea. If you do, it's a bonus, and it's a tough start, considering that the Burnley one got postponed as well, where you'd like to think that maybe in between, sandwiched between those, you could have got something, but it is what it is, and the performances have been okay and promising. Nothing to get too worried about at the moment, and improvements happening, but this is different kettle of fish, isn't it? It's almost not played on the pitch, this one, isn't it? It's that sort of feeling about it, that sort of excitement about what's going to happen, because the ground's going to change, that has changed. If the amount of noise that was created in recent games at the end of the Championship can be replicated, you've got four sides of it now as well, so it will be some spectacle. And just the noise levels that we're all expecting after what we saw at Watford and Sheffield and Sunderland, in the playoff semi, it's going to be, could be 10 times that, and if it is, we're all going to be bloody deaf the next day.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, we heard the sort of phrases, hairs on the back of your neck, goosebumps and everything about the atmosphere at Chelsea on Friday night, but it's going to go up a notch or three on Friday night. And as James just said, for the first time since the 80s, they're coming at you from four sides as well. It's going to be, I mean, we've been through hell and we're back. And on Friday night, the whole football world's going to see just what it means to every single Lutonian in that ground.
We've got to be up for it. We've got to, be 100% behind the lads out there. Got to sing our hearts out. It's got to be a notch higher than Watford or Sunderland. Oh, excuse me. And don't forget, we've got West Ham fans there as well. I can't see them being like Chelsea and Brighton were.
They won't be quiet.
No.
Want to thought.
No, they won't. So I'm really looking forward to it. It won't be sort of like blood and thunder like it used to be, in days gone by. But I'm expecting a very, very competitive game, which hopefully will come out on top.
31 years in the making, Dan. I mean, it's just yet another momentous night it was what seems to have been sort of a series of 5 years of momentous nights at the Kenny, but under the floodlights in particular. I think Sky have done us a bit of a turn there to get it on the Friday night. It's just made for a brilliant night.
It is, yeah, and who knows what could happen. Like we've all said, the beauty of playing at home in the Premier League, we don't really know what's going to happen. All right, we've played on massive pitches at Chelsea and Brighton, which we're going to have to get really used to because they're all like that. But our ground, the atmosphere we can create, the fact that it's on Sky, on the TV at night, under the lights, some brighter lights as well, we're led to believe.
What are the needs?
Space age.
Yeah, I'm going to have to bring my sunglasses again, aren't I? But yeah, no, the setting's there for a real good game of football and one I'm looking forward to. I genuinely never thought we'd see football at Kenilworth Road because I always thought we'd either...
Football?
Would have
seen plenty of football, but I understand you meant Premier League.
Did I not say Premier League?
You didn't, no.
Can you check what is in his glass?
Yeah.
Might have to get a taxi home.
Someone spiked this drink, barman.
Not sure what's gone on there. I never thought I'd see Premier League football at Kenilworth Road. I thought we'd either have moved or they'd have tried to move us somewhere else. I'm just glad that they've been able to do the work and get the money spent and get the work done. And I'm just really impressed with the turnaround as well because it's not as simple as pulling the boxes out and putting a stand in. It's there's a lot of...
They've given it a real facelift on the outside. It looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
On the outside with all the new signage up and everything. And I can't wait
and the
to
fence
see what
down
they've done
Maple
into-
Road just tops it off, doesn't it?
Yeah,
that's a Premier League.
That's a nice
That
touch.
is a Premier League fence.
That's a nice touch.
I thought it was Champions League.
No.
One step at a time.
We'll upgrade it again. That'll be twice as high when we
It'll be
get to
corrugated.
the Champions League.
Yeah.
That is a Premier League fence. That is.
It is.
All to hide these precious Premier League football.
The B&Q must have had an offer on.
Well, the entrance was starting to look all right, wasn't it? So obviously Gary said, no, we only want shit entrances at this football ground, so let's put a garden fence up.
Let them know they're in a game.
Garden fence, that just brings the tone into it nicely.
There's a back garden joke waiting in there somewhere, isn't there?
There is, and obviously,
it's going to be waiting.
If you live in the Oak Road, your back garden's going to be in plenty of focus over the next few days.
Do you know what,
unfortunately.
Kev? Just as an aside to this, I really think that a big thank you needs to go out to the community around the ground because of how they've been with all the disruption and everything with the football club. And, for their patience and everything, I think that all the people in Bury Park need to be thanked for that.
Absolutely.
Right,
and the fact that, they're just as much behind us being in the Premier League as we are as supporters. So, big thank you to them.
Well said. And quite a number of them were rewarded by going to see the Gillingham game on Tuesday night, which was very, very well deserved. James, let's go on to the game. It's kind of a feel of the first game in the Championship about this one. Friday night, team that, you fancy that we can compete with. It's just got all the magic ingredients.
Yeah, and that game was electric as well. I remember the atmosphere of that being like, whoa, this is a lot better than the lower leagues. It was a hell of a game as well, wasn't it? If we can get some goals like that, but maybe with a win, it would be even better. But Yeah, it's just going to be so exciting. I think it's almost got a cup feel to it, isn't it? Because I mean, let's be honest. If you look at the league, it's this top of the league versus,
temporarily bottom.
Temporarily bottom. Yeah, they've had a fantastic start. Before last time when we were in front of these cameras recording last week's podcast, I was looking at the West Ham game, thinking, "Wow, we could win that one." And I still think it's winnable. But it's a hell of a challenge now because they've just gone and beaten Brighton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe it's going to be one of those, outside the top 4, top 5, top 6, whatever it is this season, who just are ultra consistent and win everything. Maybe everyone else beats everyone else in this league. Who knows? But West Ham qualified for Europe. They won the Conference League in Europe, and they've just signed Kudus from Ajax. Is it? This is the sort of leagues they're in now. So we're thinking this is a very winnable game, and it is because of Kenilworth Road, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tony, conference winners against Europa Conference League winners. Can't get no better than that, really. No, James is right. They've started well. They're second in the league. I guess people kind of ripped West Ham off because they were in a relegation battle for much of last season, or down the bottom end for much of last season. But the 2 seasons before that, they actually qualified for Europe via their league position.
Yeah.
So, and obviously they've lost Declan Rice in the summer. They've replaced him with James Ward-Prowse. As James just mentioned, they've brought Kudus in, 38 million quid. So it's only 8 million quid more than we've spent in the last 30 years. But they're getting they're starting to get closer and closer to
when
us.
You put it like that,
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
They're starting to get closer and closer to us. How do you feel about the game?
Looking forward to it. I agree with James. I think it's a perfectly winnable game, but I think it's a lot harder than we all thought it was going to be when the fixtures first came out. And you've got to give it fair play to West Ham, the great start they've had. But you look at whatever league you're playing in, there's always 1 or 2 teams that start really well and then start to fade. And I think West Ham could possibly be one of those teams. We've got a great chance of picking up points, and we really need to get something out of the game on Friday just to get something on the board. And the fact that, we've got to score at least another goal. I mean, I'll quite happily take 1-0. That's the Luton Town score. I'd be happy with that. But we know it's not going to be easy. They look a fairly good, tight defensive side who are very ruthless when they get any chances up front. And it's not a typical West Ham team. Historically, West Ham were well known for playing free-flowing attacking football and being a bit soft, as it were, and a soft underbelly. But I think that's changed for them. I think they look a good unit. And if we beat them, it will be a real feather in our cap, I think.
Yeah, well, West Ham made a good start, Dan. But if you play devil's advocate, Chelsea missed a penalty at 1-1. The worst penalty you've ever seen taken. And their goalkeeper made a few worldies against Brighton on Saturday. So those games could have switched quite easily.
Yeah, and games do, but we talk about fine margins all the time in football. If certain, like you said earlier about Giles, had he took that chance against Chelsea, it could have been a different game, which I agree with. And that could be the case again, definitely. They're a good side, West Ham. I think their position last year was a bit false because I think they put a lot into trying to get success in Europe, and it nearly cost them their Premier League status. And I think, given the fact that obviously Declan Rice has got his big money move, they needed to replace him. They've managed to replace him with someone who's a bit more of an all-round midfielder in Ward-Prowse. I think they're looking stronger. And you look at the forward options. I was particularly impressed with Jarrod Bowen at the weekend. He's looking very strong, looking stronger all the time, which was unfortunate for us on Friday. I just hope that he trips over on the hoardings when he comes out or something,
Might slip
give him a bit
over
of a
coming through the away end. You might end up in someone's back garden or
I
something.
hope so. Gets a
everyone
splinter
knows-
out the shed.
Everyone knows that that's the way that away teams get into our ground, through the away end rather than reception.
The shit entrance.
Absolutely, yeah. Their chant for Jared Bowen's one of the best chants in football, has to be said. And I hope we don't hear it on Friday night, but
You will.
I will probably smirk once or twice if we do hear it. Let's get onto the teams then, James. For those that don't know what, just go Google the Conference League final aftermath, and we'll say no more from there. Let's get onto the teams then, James. Do you envisage Rob Edwards making too many changes from the side that played against Chelsea rather than the one that played against Gillingham?
No, not many, to be honest. I think with the fact that he put Barkley in against Chelsea and he needs the minutes, I don't expect him to play much of a... Sorry, I do expect him to play a more of a role in that one, because they need to get him up to speed. Because if you heard Edwards' comments before the game on Sky Sports, he was saying, he's the X factor, and he could provide so much for us, and he's absolutely right, because he's got that Premier League experience. That you can't buy that, and they didn't. They're going for free agent somehow. I don't know how they
Money
did it.
well not spent.
I don't know how they did it. So he's going to be so key in that battle, I think, because. West Ham do look pretty tasty this year. Interestingly, I've got a lot of West Ham fans, and they're still in this mindset of, it's going good now, but somewhere along the line we're going to trip up, and it's going to be against Luton. That's their mindset.
They have this irrational hatred of Luton, don't they? I think there's actually a book from a West Ham fan, My Irrational Hatred of Luton Town. I'm sure I've seen it doing the rounds.
They're not the only club, though, are they?
No, well,
We've actually upset them quite a few times.
Yeah, it's not
over the
actually
years.
irrational at all. It's perfectly rational. We keep knocking them out of every cup competition we play them in. Can someone make this the Premier League Cup, please? And
we'll treat it like a cup tie, and we'll be all right.
Oh, it'll certainly be a cup tie atmosphere. That's for sure. Any
Definitely.
change? Do you see any changes in the Luton team, Tony, from the Chelsea game?
No, I don't, to be honest with you. I think it may well depend upon who we sign. If we sign anybody in time to play.
You suspect they wouldn't go straight into the starting 11, though, wouldn't you? I mean, if Barkley didn't go straight in, then you kind of think...
Depends how close to the game, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you
They
kind
have
of
to be
think...
registered by a certain point as well.
Yeah, I think it's midday on Friday they need to be
who we-
registered by.
Who we sign, though. It depends. And I think that probably will be the only change, I think. I'd quite like to see Brown start up front with Morris, because I think the two of them together can upset them. Because, as I said, they do look a fairly solid defensive unit, and we're going to need players that are going to be physical and get in there and, chase everything down. And both Morris and Brown do that. I think this might not be the type of game for Elijah to start. Maybe if we go 1-0 up later and West Ham are chasing the game and we need an outlet, maybe Elijah come on then, because he can cause trouble and damage for us. So I think you'll see Chong in there. I think you'll see Barkley in there and Nakamba, because I think if you look at it, those three midfielders together are probably got the most potential out of any midfield that we can field at the moment. It would be nice to see Pelly go on at some point. I don't think Pelly will start the game, but I think we will see him towards the closing stages of the game, because we're going to need that in midfield, what he can bring. But no, I think it'll be fairly consistent from Chelsea.
Dan, the world that we're in with social media and everything, you're crap if you have one bad game. And there's lots of calls for Alfie Doughty to replace Ryan Giles. Is that a move that you'd make? Do you see that?
I see it at some point in the season, yeah. Whether it'll be Friday or not, probably not. Although it's hard to say, isn't it? I can't really second guess what Rob Edwards is thinking. I'd definitely give Doughty a run out at some point, because I think he's part of the squad that earned it last year. He's one of our better players. I think he was used to defending a bit more than Giles is, I'd say. Giles doesn't strike me as a natural sort of defender, just from the couple of games that I've seen him in.
It's hard on Doughty, I think.
It is harsh.
This is the competition that players are going to have to face now. But
Yeah, it is
I thought
harsh.
it was really good last season.
He was outstanding.
But like Kev said when they signed Giles, you're not going to spend £5 million on him and not play him.
No, if he's fit, you'd more or less.
The thing with Alfie though, he's versatile. He can play on either flank,
Yeah,
which is good. You're saying about Giles. I think if Giles is on his game with his crossing and his corners, he's got to be in the side for that. I mean, it wasn't great against Chelsea.
No, it wasn't.
But we've all seen what he can do. You know, the only thing I would say is that the Chelsea game, his dead ball wasn't that great.
No.
So why persist with him doing it when we've got other people that can do that as well, like Barkley and Chong.
Yeah, I'd like to see Barkley take a few more set pieces. I think just because of his, as I said earlier about his passing range and that kind of stuff. I think it gives you that bit more.
I think we're just such a small side that anyone that's somewhere close to 6 foot needs to be in the box. It's as simple as that, isn't it? And that's why Barkley and Chong were in and around the edge of the box, one blocking the keeper and one trying to be.
Sooner
mischief.
or later, one of those knockdowns is going to come right for us. And we've got players like Barkley and Chong who can hit them, and one of those is going to go for us sooner or later. So hopefully it'll be Friday.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, James, let's move it on to West Ham. And obviously, I mean, we alluded to it earlier in the podcast. They've spent big on 3 individuals. They probably used the Declan Rice money for that. Looking at their team, though, I mean, it looks like they're going to have the Moroccan defender Naif Adguerd back. He was suspended against Brighton after being sent off against Chelsea. However, on the flip side of that, it looked like Thomas Souček was seeing stars when he went off, so I'm presuming that that's some sort of concussion, in which case he won't be allowed to play. Therefore, they're going to have to replace him in the centre of midfield, and we don't know whether Kudus will go straight into their side or not. 38 million quid to us. He walks into Luton's team, but obviously for West Ham, that's probably only a fee that kind of gets you on the bench. But they've got to bring a midfielder in, we think, and they're probably going to change their defence, but they're a strong side.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they you just got to look at the way that Brighton have played in the first 2 games and wiped the floor score-wise. They didn't wipe the floor with it. We discussed that in the last podcast. Luton were in it to the 81st minute, but score-wise, they racked up the goals, and then to play against West Ham and get beaten so comprehensively. And I think West Ham seem to be able to play quite well without the ball, but when they do get it, they are ruthless at the moment. And you wouldn't have said that a couple of seasons ago with a team that's led the line with Mikel Antonio, because it wasn't that ruthless. But I think Jared Bowen stepped up. He was quality in the conference final. He was pretty decent when he played for Hull, actually, at Luton, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Day, was they 1-2-0 or something like that?
3-0, and they sold him after, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. He was pretty decent then, but he's really seemed to have kicked on under West Ham, and they've got so much quality. Like, we talk about this all the time about the players you're going to face, but they've got like Paqueta, who, but for a betting allegation or something like that, Man City wanted him. Man City don't get players for nothing. they're the best side in the world. They're only going to get players that try and add and complement to them. So he's a top player as well. I think they get outable in the defence. That's not it. Is now, mate. It is now.
It is.
If you're watching Collins Oxford Dictionary, people, there's your word, get atable.
Yeah. And that's, we've got to make them nervous. And we know how that's going to happen. And we expect that that's going to happen. And it just has to happen. The crowd's going to be such a big factor in it. And I kind of used to think that wasn't. That the crowd wouldn't really play. And it's always talked about the 12th man, but how much of it really is. And then last season when Watford and Sunderland played, and you just saw those teams wilt. Now I know that West Ham play in front of bigger sides, bigger grounds, and that amount of fans. They play at the Olympic Stadium, for goodness sake. But maybe, just maybe, they play at these lovely Swiss grounds where the fans are far away, certainly in the Olympic Stadium, because it wasn't built for football. And they come to a ground like Kenilworth Road. And that is what we're all hoping. That is what we expect. the fans and the crowd is going to be so close to these players, they are not going to like it. You know, I had a couple of friends who went to the Chelsea game, and even they was adamant that the Chelsea players didn't know what the hell to make of the Luton fans, because you beat a team like they did, you expect that the opposition fans would be a bit quiet. Not Luton. And let's hope that they make a massive deal about that.
Yeah, I guess, Tony, the good thing is that there aren't many West Ham players still in the squad now that were there in the Upton Park days, because Upton Park is very similar to Kenilworth Road in terms of closeness to the pitch. So they are going to feel something different.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'll thank you, not to mention lower league sides like Sunderland and Watford. No, it's going to be a totally new experience for them. You cast your mind back to those two games last season, especially that lot down the road when they got their first throw in on the Maple Road side. They didn't want to take it. Who's going to take it? You know, and what we need, we in the pre-match kickabout, you could see in the players' eyes the fear. They just froze, and that's what we've got to do on Friday night. But it's not just the crowd thing. They're going to come into a small, compact ground, and they're going to go in there, and the dressing room, the away dressing room, compared to what they're used to, is tiny and cramped. They're not going to be used to that. So they're going to be able to hear the crowd. You know, have you been in the away dressing room at Kenilworth Road?
It's smaller than this room.
It is tiny, absolutely tiny. And they're going to be on top of one another, and they're going to hear the crowd. And when they come out, they'll know what abuse is. You know, and
that's just from Tony.
Yeah, and that's the way it's
he's welcoming them.
You know, it's got to be like that. Not just Friday night, but every single Premier League game this season.
Yeah, it's only 19 times.
Yeah, you know, and by the end of it, we'll have so much practice that we'll be doing it off pat every game.
Yeah,
you know, so West Ham are up first from the Premier League, and they ain't going to like it.
No,
they ain't going to like it.
No, they're not.
You know, that's what we want.
Absolutely. Let's go through some key battles, as we always do then, Dan. And I guess the key battle of the night, the one that we really have to keep quiet, as James alluded to earlier, Jared Bowen. He plays the Raheem Sterling role for West Ham. So we have to defend that side a lot better.
Yes, we do. I can see you thinking beyond the question, does Doughty start ahead of Giles?
Not my question, social media's question. And I'm only here to pander to social media, don't forget.
Sorry, don't shoot the messenger. I'll take that shot back then, shall I?
I like that, Kev. It wasn't me.
Well, you said it. Yeah.
Well, listen, we're doing a player podcast next week, and just in case Ryan Giles gets put in front of me, there was nothing to do with me. Social media.
What about Alfie?
No,
obviously we're going to have to really step up and, you know, be on the ball and don't give them a sniff. I mean, comparing Sterling to Bowen, it shouldn't really be as difficult, but I'd take nothing away from Bowen.
No, absolutely.
On his day, he can rip you apart, and you know he's shown that. And I expect him to want to have a go again. You know, he's like James said earlier, he's played at Kenilworth Road before, so he knows pretty much what it's going to be like if he can remember that far back.
It won't be that. It'll be noisier than that.
It'll be a lot noisier. Yeah, I do remember it was a bit quieter that afternoon.
And the players have got to be on top of the game with their shithousery as well.
Yeah. We need Danny Hilton to give the team talk beforehand, don't we? I think just get him in and just I know you've done a lot of work with the kids, which you're doing, which is brilliant. But just have a chat with the first team and just show them a few tricks, you know. But yeah, no. We need to keep him quiet, definitely. Most of their play goes through him when they're attacking on the counter, and he gets you goals. So we're going to have to stop him.
Yeah, they are comparable, him and Sterling. It was only, not even 12 months ago that people expected him to be named in England's World Cup squad to go to Qatar.
He was very unlucky not to.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people had him in there. in their 23.
But that's the quality we're going to come up against. This
Yeah.
season.
Every week as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's nothing super smashing great about this particular Jay Bowen, and the town...
That's a reference for the kids, isn't
The
it?
town can...
That's lost on me, that.
yeah,
Not a clue.
That's all right. These two obviously know...
Bullseye.
These two are obviously well aware
Oh.
of Bullseye.
Okay, yeah. In one, a Kevin Harper joke.
You know, I keep forgetting I'm working with these kids. It's just incredible, isn't it?
I know what Bullseye
Now you
is.
know how I feel, Kev.
Well, indeed, yeah, but everyone's a kid to you, Tony. So, we'll move on to Key Battle 2, and James, I'll come to you for this one. Mikel Antonio
when
against
you had nothing. Mate.
Mikel Antonio against
That's what
Tom
I showed up
Lockyer.
with.
Shut up, boys. He's asking me a question.
Yeah, exactly. Pipe down. Mikel Antonio against Tom Lockyer. It's physical forward against physical defender, and Lockyer has to keep him quiet because Antonio started the season really well.
He finished it as well last season. I thought it was very good. He's
Another one actually who's been talking about, or was being talked about for England squads. He's now actually a teammate of Amari Bell at Jamaica.
Oh right, yeah. Of course, yeah, he is. He's come on leaps and bounds as a player, as a striker. Anyway, wasn't even a striker, was he? A couple of seasons ago. And before that, I'd say he was like the Emil Heskey sort of a striker who would do all the dog work and was physical and stuff, but wouldn't get you goals. But somehow he's started adding goals now. So if you give him half a yard of space, his last goal, it wasn't at the weekend, the one before that actually, where he smacked it through somebody's legs from the edge of the box and stuff. That is a striker in loads of confidence and loads of form. So he's coming up against a Lockyer. I think we've all seen that probably isn't quite up to speed yet. He will be. And so it is going to be interesting, but he's going to have to be properly up for it, Tom. Look, I'm sure he will be. I mean, he's the sort of player that knows what awaits when he gets out of that tunnel. He knows it, and he knows that can give him a little bit extra, as we hope it gives everybody else. But yeah, he's got to be top of his game and try and keep Antonio with his back to goal, because he can hold it up, but if he turns you, you're in a bit of bother, I think.
You're in serious bother, yeah. Hopefully Amari's made everyone fully aware of what we're coming up against with regards to Antonio. Tony, the last key battle in the game, they're not kind of direct opponents, but Ross Barkley against James Ward-Prowse, they're the two set-piece specialists in the game. They're the two class acts in midfield.
Yeah.
If Barkley can stamp his footprint on the game more than Ward-Prowse does, you'd think that's going to lead us slightly closer to victory.
Yeah. I think Barkley is not up to speed yet. He will be getting there. This will be another point on it.
Well, that 65 minutes will have done him the world of good, wouldn't it?
He's got a Premier League engine, though, isn't he? So hopefully
He knows the league well,
I
doesn't
thought
he?
the longer the game went on, the sharper he got as well.
Yeah. Some of his passing was class, so he's going to be up for that. I mean, as you said, Ward-Prowse is a different type of player, but we need to
not give him any free kicks.
Yeah, no free kicks around the box, please.
But we need to be in on
Just
him
in his own half, please.
And just try and get out service to him, or stop him putting the service through to other players. But the main thing is, as you say, no free kicks outside the box. I know it's hard for defenders, and the referees in this league seem to be a bit whistle happy. So just as you said, Dan, we've got to stand up.
Yeah.
Not go to ground too easily. In and around the box. Otherwise, Ward-Prowse will crucify us.
Yep. Also scored from open play at Brighton, didn't he? Ward-Prowse, so very much a danger man. Hopefully, Barkley can outshine him over the course of the evening. Okay, we'll finish this podcast as we always do with score predictions for the game, and I'll come to you first, James. Luton v West Ham, how's it going to finish?
It's going to finish 3-2, and it's going to be a rip-roaring barnstorm of a game. It's going to be a last-minute winner from Ross Barkley.
Free kick.
Can you check his drink?
He keeps hiding it, so we're not looking. I can see him turning, putting something in
That
it.
hip flask I've got in
Yeah.
there.
That'll do for us, I'm sure. Absolutely, if that one comes true. I mean, 3-2 Luton's a synonymous score in our history, so let's hope it does.
Especially against West Ham.
Indeed, yeah. Tony, how does it end?
2-1 Luton.
2-1 Luton. Are you going as far as James to give the last goal scorer?
Carlton Morris.
Carlton Morris, fantastic. And Dan, how does Luton v West Ham end?
I was going to say 3-2, then I was going to say 2-1. So.
Well, you've got to agree with one of them. Which one are you agreeing with?
I don't know. Really, you know, I'm going to say 3-2 because you want goals. You want to see goals, don't you? I want to see a Ross Barkley free kick at the end, smack it home. Or he can just get the ball and smack it. Or I don't really care who scores. You know, Amari Bell overhead kick from the halfway line, that'll do.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Nick Amber's first ever Luton goal.
Anything.
No, I think I'd prefer the Amari Bell overhead kick from the halfway line, actually.
Yeah.
It sounds like an absolute...
It would stop all the people that moan at little things that we're not 2-0 up after 5 minutes from moaning, you know.
What are you
get
drinking?
No, it weren't me who said it. It's nothing to do with me.
No, I think it'll be close. I think we might just nick it 3-2. Just confident this time.
Yeah.
Really confident.
Fair enough.
Because we're at home, it's a bit of different, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very
absolutely
different.
it is. Yeah, I'm with Tony. I think Luton win 2-1. Very similar to the Sunderland game, but I just don't see us keeping a clean sheet against the quality that West Ham have got on the pitch.
Has any of us got a score right yet? We should have a leaderboard, shouldn't we?
We should do.
Stick it there.
Yeah.
At the minute, we've got nothing to show you because no one's got a damn thing.
Once I
right.
get
Nice
on top
shirts.
of it, once I get on top, we'll put that behind us. Yeah, no, absolutely. So 2 for 2-1, 2 for 3-2. Either way, we're all pretty confident this will be the time Luton Town pick up their first 3 points in the Premier League. That's it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks once again, as always, to the Hightown Club, the venue where we're recording these podcasts from. Thanks also to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our excellent intro. As you can see on James's t-shirt, very well plugged there, Jimbo. And Ed Smith, creative as well. Thanks, Ed, for all the images and all the work that you've done with regards to our podcast. If you've watched this via video, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel because obviously you'll get notifications of whenever we drop any video podcasts. But the more subscribers we can get to the podcast, the bigger and better we can make it. And that's our aim for everyone. Thank you to everyone who's listened, to everyone who's watched. Please do keep your comments coming in. We're absolutely enjoying all of the feedback. We take it on board. If you've got anything that you'd like us to discuss, anything that you'd like us to bring into the podcast or ditch from the podcast, sadly, we can't dump Tony. He is the chairman of the trust. But apart from that, we will take everything else on board with you. We will be back after the West Ham.
It's unfair, isn't it, that?
After the West Ham game, we will be back with our review show. And then during the international break, we have got plenty of podcasts lined up for you. So do hit that subscribe button so that you know when all of the videos drop. Until then, everyone, please be loud, please be proud, please be Luton Town on Friday night. Give the boys all the backing you possibly can. And just enjoy one of the special nights in our club's history. Tony, James, Dan, thanks very much. And thanks to you for watching and listening. And for this episode, goodbye.
Can you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people.